Tim, a large number of mainstream news outlets have joined the Heritage Foundation and Judicial Watch in their efforts against the Department of Justice to gain release of the recordings Special Counsel Robert Hur made of his interview with Joe Biden regarding his classified documents held improperly. ABC, CBS, and NBC News, CNN, The Wall Street Journal, The Washington Post, along with other news agencies, are now suing the DOJ for the audio and video of the 5-hour interview. Joe Biden has asserted executive privilege over them. The lawsuit states this: these recordings will help the public evaluate Hur's decision not to charge Biden and to close the investigation into classified documents found at Biden's former office and private residence. In particular, they will shed light on Hur's controversial characterization of Biden as an elderly man with a poor memory. The media outlets wrote this: transcripts are no substitute for recordings which reveal intonations, hesitancies, inflection, and voice of tone or tone of voice. Those qualities amount to a substantial part of the real record, which is completely lost to the public scrutiny when only a transcript is released. The suit states, to date, the DOJ has not provided a timetable for the production of any records in response to the press coalition's requests. In another Donald Trump-related lawsuit on Tuesday, Judge Aileen Cannon unsealed numerous motions related to Jack Smith's classified documents case. One particular filing revealed Joe Biden's FBI authorized the use of deadly force against his predecessor during the raid on Mar-a-Lago in August of 2022. Armed FBI agents were deployed and prepared to confront Trump if he resisted. The order read this: law enforcement officers of the Department of Justice may use deadly force only when necessary. That is, when the officer has a reasonable belief that the subject of such force poses an imminent danger of death or serious physical injury to the officer or to another person, end quote. Joe Biden paved the way for his Justice Department to arrest his political opponent after he retroactively revoked Donald Trump's executive privilege. By June of 2023, the former president was indicted on 37 counts related to Jack Smith's classified documents case. Donald Trump's defense team in his so-called hush money trial rested their case Tuesday morning without calling the former president to testify. The defense team called 2 witnesses after the prosecution rested Monday, paralegal Daniel Sitko and attorney Robert Costello. However, the expert witness for the defense, Bradley Smith, former commissioner of the Federal Election Commission, was not heard after the presiding judge curbed the scope of his testimony, with Smith writing on social media, quote, Judge Merchan has so restricted my testimony that defense has decided not to call me. Now, it's elementary that the judge instructs the jury on the law, so I understand his reluctance. According to Fox News, election law expert Smith, who Trump referred to as the Rolls-Royce of experts in his field, was meant to shed light on the prosecution's allegations that Trump falsified business records to cover up election violations. And Judge Juan Merchan has now dismissed the jury until after Memorial Day. They're scheduled to reconvene with deliberations May 28th. And the Biden administration announced Tuesday it will release 1 million barrels of gasoline from the Northeast gasoline supply, part of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The aim is to lower gas prices during the summer driving season and, of course, ahead of the November election. The decision has drawn criticism from Republicans who accuse Joe Biden of using energy reserves to offset his economic policies and influence voters. Critics argue that the release, accounting for less than 3 hours of consumption, would have minimal impact on prices. Gas prices have risen significantly since Joe Biden took office, contributing to higher overall energy costs and inflation, which Republicans blame on Biden's policies. The administration defends the move as part of broader efforts to lower energy costs. Tim.
Mike, looking ahead to the presidential election, a recent report shows nearly half of the voters foresee an economic downturn, a concern downplayed by Joe Biden's campaign. According to the Consumer Spending and Saving Index by MassMutual, 45% anticipate a recession, up 8% from last quarter. In the meantime, comments from both Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell indicate they are downplaying recession prospects, though Powell noted uncertainty. And inflation worries are rising, with 42% of those surveyed citing it as their main financial concern, up from 37%. As the presidential election approaches, voters remain skeptical of Bidenomics, favoring former President Trump on economic matters. Inflation concerns are at an all-time high, with 78% of voters reportedly living paycheck to paycheck. The survey of 1,000 people nationwide and an additional 500 Massachusetts residents was conducted from April 10th to the 29th by PSB Insights. The Biden administration filed additional charges on Monday against more pro-life advocates after already putting dozens behind bars. According to LifeNews.com, the Justice Department charged Citizens for a Pro-Life Society and Red Rose Rescue, along with several advocates, claiming their protests violated the FACE Act. Monica Miller, founder of Citizens for a Pro-Life Society group, denied any wrongdoing, telling Life News the two organizations, quote, never block anything or anyone, adding, we have every confidence that through our great attorneys, we will prevail over this bogus attempt by the weaponization DOJ to drag even RRR under its persecution of those who seek to defend the unborn from violence. In these cases, the Justice Department is seeking financial damages, including $20,516 for the first violations and $30,868 for subsequent offenses, as well as injunctive relief as provided by the FACE Act. Greg?
Well, let's stay with the Biden administration's Department of Justice. They filed lawsuit Tuesday against Oklahoma challenging a state law imposing criminal penalties on illegal immigrants. Fox News reported the Department of Justice argued that enforcing immigration law was a federal matter. Therefore, the state could not disregard the Constitution, along with claiming Supreme Court precedent. Signed into law by Republican Governor Kevin Stitt earlier this month, House Bill 4156 makes it a crime to be in the state illegally. It grants local law enforcement permission to arrest illegal immigrants, and it requires the immigrants to leave the state within 72 hours of conviction or release from custody. The law is scheduled to go into effect July 1st. Stitt said the law was necessary since Joe Biden is failing to secure the border. Joining us now is Congressman for the 1st District of the state of Texas, Representative Nate Moran. Welcome back to Victory News, sir.
Greg, thanks for having me today. Great to be here with you.
You just heard how the Department of Justice is suing your neighbor to the north, Oklahoma, for illegal immigrants that they've passed in that law. You've seen a similar battle there in the state of Texas and the Biden administration. Why do you think they're stopping states from enforcing laws on illegal aliens?
Well, I think it's pretty evident. There's a couple of reasons. One is that they want more illegal immigrants here, I think, because ultimately they want more voters. That's number one. And number two, they're trying to pander to the base, the far left base, this squad base that they want to try to appease before the election. And I think you could even add number three in here is they do not want to admit in an election year that the policies of the Biden administration are failing Americans and creating a national security interest and are contrasted to those successful policies of the Trump administration. They don't want to give Trump any credit during this year.
Okay, now several days ago, it was the one-year anniversary of the House passage of the Secure the Border Act. Yet the crisis has grown greater with illegal crossings now by Chinese and Middle Eastern aliens entering that are unvetted. We don't know who they are. Why have the Senate and the Biden administration ignored H.R. 2?
The Biden administration has had weak foreign policy since day one, and it is like an ostrich putting its head in the ground, pretending as though there are no national security threats because of our porous southern border. But in fact, there are lots of national security interests. And you've got to ask yourself, why are Chinese nationals, Iranians, others that are from organizations and countries around the world that have connections to terrorism, why are they coming through our porous southern border? And what do they intend to do once they get here? The Biden administration wants to ignore that problem and simply just say it's not a problem at all. And they don't want states to enforce federal law. Remember, these states are just enacting laws that are exactly contemporaneous with and supportive of what federal law actually says needs to happen, but the Biden administration refuses to enforce.
Okay, Joe Biden has announced another $7.7 billion in student loans that will not need to be repaid, with those who stand to benefit having an average of $35,000 in debt written off. Biden's total transfer of student debt to taxpayers is $1.4 trillion. Congressman, you know this, that surpasses the U.S. military budget. What's the goal, and why isn't he going through Congress for these expenditures?
Hey, it's a presidential election year. President Biden is here to buy off votes and buy off voters. That's exactly why he's doing this. And my people in East Texas are very adamant. This is just a redistribution of wealth, and in fact, is a tax on the middle class, because you can't just write off this this debt. Somebody's got to pay it, and who's paying it is the people who elected not to go to college and elected not to take out debt. They're paying that debt for others that made that choice.
All right, let me talk about something you're doing. You and Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany are co-sponsors of a bill to stop the Biden administration's drive to sign America onto the World Health Organization pandemic treaty. Tell us what's going on with this WHO issue.
Yeah, the World Health Organization right now is trying to get an agreement passed that is really a treaty, and they're trying to circumvent the treaty rules that say we have to have 2/3 support of the Senate to actually engage in this treaty. They're calling it an agreement. It's going to take away the sovereignty of the United States. We do not want to see that happen. We want to require that there is a treaty and 2/3 consent by the Senate, and I don't think they'll get it.
Okay, Congressman, you're a Christian, you're a believer working in Washington. How tough is that in today's politics and culture on the Hill?
It's extremely tough, but I'm motivated by folks in history like Daniel and Esther. I love the story of Esther. She was engaged with political and cultural battles from day one, and when she got engaged, she made a difference. She changed the heart and mind. Change the laws, saved a nation, and that's what we're trying to do, is save our nation. We need to follow the example of Esther.
Well, we've got a lot of people that are praying for you, sir. Thank you, Congressman Moran, for being with us today on Victory News.